Viewed from above, the territory of Kemeri National Park looks like a green oasis set amidst a landscape transformed by man. The park was established in 1997 by uniting several pre-existing nature reserves, namely Lake Kanyeri's Ornithological Reserve, Kemeri Great Bog Reserve, Kracho Dunes Geological Reserve, and a number of locations with rare plant and animal communities. At present, the national park covers an area of 38,000 hectares. The National Park Administration is located in the historic Forest House in Kemeri. The building also houses the park's information center. In order to balance the needs of nature conservation with economic interests, the park's territory is divided into 4 zones with various degrees of protection. The strictest protection rules apply to the Nature Reserve Zone, which covers approximately half of the national park's territory. The main value of the Kemeri National Park is its relatively untouched territory, containing a great diversity of plant and animal habitats. For the wildlife to survive, it is important to have natural sites not regularly visited by humans. If we fail to preserve these quite secluded spots, we will lose many endangered species. Half of the territory of Kemeri National Park is covered by a vast forest area, while 1/4 is occupied by wetlands. The greatest value of the national park is its naturalness. The nature values found here can facilitate the development of local farms by means of environmentally friendly tourism. It also opens excellent opportunities for environmental education. In the early years of its existence, the administration of Kemeri National Park, in cooperation with Danish company Carl Bro and many environmental experts, developed an 8-year nature protection plan. The environmental experts carried out additional research of the nature values in the park and identified the short-term and long-term needs for reaching the goals of the national park. The administration coordinated activities with other organizations operating inside the park's territory. Simultaneously, the rules for protection and use of the national park's territory were elaborated. Governmental funding proved insufficient to implement all the activities envisaged by the Nature Protection Plan. However, when winning a grant from the European Commission Life Nature Programme, 3/4 of the financial resources necessary for the implementation of the project wetland protection in the Kemeri National Park were secured. This project included all main nature conservation activities from the time of the park's foundation until 2006. This is what this film is going to be about. Kemeri National Park is managed by the park administration, which takes care of nature protection throughout the park's territory. The administration takes every opportunity to register land properties on behalf of the state. Of course, priority is given to the territories containing important nature values or sites that potentially could have these values in the future. Many places require that a significant amount of work and resources are invested in nature management. Often, this work only renders benefit in a rather distant future. The greatest amount of land has been bought for the creation and management of biologically valuable grasslands. Thus, in Juukse County alone, 271 hectares of land have been bought, including 163 hectares within the framework of the LIFE project. Territorial surveying and development planning is impossible without maps. The most precise maps are the ones based on aerial photography. The images taken from an airplane over several years and during different seasons supply invaluable information about the situation on land. The obtained orthophotos are then used for drawing maps and planning activities for the future. Latvia's forests are often called the green gold. This metaphor does not only refer to the commercial value of timber. In a national park, a forest obtains the value of gold only when it is protected from the impact of man. Nature has created a large diversity of organisms which have great significance in the natural processes of a forest. The change of species and of generations of trees in a forest is slow and gradual. But sometimes the changes may be fast and abrupt, as in the cases of fire, windfall and beaver-created flooding. Natural disasters transform the environment. This in turn leads to further transformations in plant and animal communities. New species arrive to the place of these kinds of incidents. These rapid processes are no less important than the gradual changes in stable ecosystems. Higher environmental diversity only increases the biodiversity in the forests. Often people see natural disasters as only broken timber and economic losses. But in nature, no dead tree is left unused. They are inhabited by many species of moss, lichen, and tiny animals. More resilient to disasters are the forests that have been left untouched for a long period of time. Their main value is the presence of plant and animal species that change their habitat very slowly. They appear in forests that have not been disturbed for decades. These forests are like gene pools that ensure dispersal of species in the surrounding territories. But trees grow not only in forests. Old oak trees providing habitat for a number of insects, such as a hermit beetle, are of special importance. The number of specially protected forest areas in Kemeri National Park is far greater than elsewhere in Latvia. In order to protect endangered plants and animals, micro-reserves are established around the breeding sites located outside the strictly protected nature reserves. Most often, they are established around the nests of big birds or around the communities of rare plants, such as the lady's slipper orchid. The forests of the national park, rich in dead standing trees, has the biggest population of protected woodpeckers in Latvia, including the three-toed woodpecker and the white-backed woodpecker, which is also the symbol of the national park. Natural uncultivated meadows account for just 2% of the national park's territory. No wonder then that they are an object of special attention. The meadows require regular tending to prevent overgrowing. In the course of history, man drove large wild herbivores from the grasslands. In Latvia, the auroch and the wild horse lost their habitat in this process. They had until then helped to keep the meadows open. Nowadays, this function is fulfilled by domestic cattle and horses, or more often, by agricultural machinery. The natural meadows that are regularly mowed have greater biodiversity. A common inhabitant of these meadows is the corncrake. The lesser spotted eagle also needs open meadows for hunting mice and frogs. In several places, meadows have overgrown with shrubs or even forest due to long years of neglect. In order to increase the proportion of meadows in the national park, a substantial effort must now be made to clear the meadows of scrub. But clearance of scrub is not enough. The meadows must be mown regularly in order to restore them to their former condition. Mowing in the areas cleared from scrub is quite complicated. The stumps create problems for the mowers and their tools. It will take years for these meadows to restore their former diversity of plants and animals. Mowing is easier in the big, previously managed meadows. Every year, 360 hectares of state-owned grasslands are mowed in the national park. Within time, the proportion of these areas which are mowed will decrease, and that of grazed grasslands will increase. The grass growing in the biologically valuable meadows is not really suitable for feeding the livestock in winter. In order to minimize the damage done to birds nesting in the grass, mowing must be done in the second half of summer when chicks are big enough to escape the mowers. The grass at this time is much poorer in nutrients than at the beginning of summer. As the autumn approaches, the weather gets more humid and the drying of hay is less effective. Grazing is a far more natural method of meadow management than mowing. Traditional farm animals such as cows, horses and sheep are effective grazers. Sometimes, due to economic reasons, the density of livestock per hectare is too high. Such grazing depletes the environment. The National Park Administration, in collaboration with the World Wildlife Fund, has started to use breeds of free-ranging cattle and horses for grazing purposes. The animals stay within a fenced area throughout the year, surviving on their own. Besides acting as effective grazing machines, they also create a qualitatively different environment in which many plant and animal species find their habitat. The first cattle paddock was made in the Dunduri Meadows in 2004, and 15 aurochs were brought from Belgium and released there. A year later, they were joined by 10 conic horses. The large herbivores are often accompanied by birds. Common starlings and wagtails pick up insects directly from the animals while sitting on their backs. The grazed areas also attract geese. Thanks to the support provided by the large herbivore foundation, 24 conic horses and 5 aurochs now graze in the Lielupe meadows. Now the meadows will not overgrow with scrubs and reeds anymore. The first winter was quite hard for the aurochs, but the lush grass in the grazing season helped them adjust to their new surroundings, comprising 156 hectares. True, their new life in Latvia is not without problems. Snow and cold in the winter, gadflies and other insects in the summer, and wolves in the forest. The survival of aurochs and conic horses largely depends on the size and structure of the herd. These are social animals, each with a character of its own, and in the face of danger they support and defend each other. Even wolves pose no threat when the strongest bulls or stallions protect the weaker members of the herd. The presence of conic horses and aurochs does not seem to bother roe deer and wild boars, which usually come out from the forest to graze at night. Foxes show some interest in the newcomers, but wolves visit them rarely. The amount of animals within the fenced area is still far from what the vegetation of this territory can potentially sustain. The horses and aurochs have all the conditions to feed and reproduce here in the future. Grazing has one more advantage over mowing. It helps keep the landscape open in wet areas, inaccessible to agricultural machinery, such as the Lielupe floodplain meadows in Kemeri National Park. They stretch for 6 kilometers, and every spring they get flooded. The Dunduru meadows have become not only friendlier to nature, but also visually more pleasing. This has been achieved largely to the remindering of the Slumpy River. In the 1970s, the riverbed was artificially changed. The river was straightened and channeled through drainage ditches. In 2005, the first remindering project was carried out in Latvia, and the Slampe River was restored to its former shape in a 4.6 km section. Meandering through the Dunduri meadows, the river has become much shallower, and its banks have been leveled flat. In spring, the waters do not flood the nearby land properties anymore. If the snow melts rapidly, ice dams form on the river and the Dunduri meadows are flooded for a couple of weeks. You can only speculate whether the otter feels at home here, but the big water lagoons certainly attract hundreds of waterfowl and marsh birds, which continue to return here until long after the stream has returned to its bed. From now on, the stream will shape its riverbed itself, scouring out depressions around underwater obstacles and in the outer edges of the curves. Many water animals and wader birds will appreciate the shoals and sandbars. This kind of diversity of coastal and underwater structures provides new habitats for different plant and animal species. The remnants of the drainage ditches are also full of life. They are good breeding sites for amphibians and tiny water creatures, while the deeper parts are inhabited by bigger fish. The runoff of water is hampered by the beavers, which build their dams in drainage ditches. Although beavers have a significant function in nature, their plans not always agree with ours. The territory of Kemeri National Park largely comprises lowlands and bogs. Vast expanses of wet forests alternate with shallow lakes, wet coastal meadows and raised bogs. The largest of them is a Great Kemeri Bog, which covers an area of 55 square kilometers. The raised bogs grow as the partly decayed parts of sphagnum mosses accumulate in annual cycles, forming the peat. In the northeastern section of the Great Kemeri Bog, peat was extracted until the 1970s. A grid of ditches was made to drain the peat-cutting site. But this interference caused significant changes in the surroundings. An enhanced runoff of water degrades the adjacent sections of the bog. As a bog dries up, it overgrows with trees, and in summer the dry peat becomes a serious fire hazard. Most importantly, the open bog landscape disappears with its maze of little lakes that provide home for many plant and animal species. If we lose our bogs, we may lose a chance to observe the European galled plover, the diver, the European curlew, whimbrels, great grey shrikes, wood sandpipers, the insect-eating plant sundew, and a number of other species. In order to restore the water level in the Great Kemeri bog, the drainage ditches were filled up. When the access roads are built, this area will attract thousands of visitors and nature lovers. It will tell the story of a choice that modern man has had to make. The choice between stripping the bog of its peat and burning it in furnaces, or preserving the bog untouched, together with its flora and fauna. The bogs of the national park present one more interesting feature. Deep underground, where the peat bog touches the limestone bedrock, mineral water rich in hydrogen sulfide is formed. The once famous Kemeri spa grew popular thanks to the healing effects of this water. Nowadays, the importance of the sulfur springs is mostly that of fostering biodiversity. Around the sulfur spring outlets grow special communities of plants characteristic to fens and transitional bogs. The rare great fen sage can be found there. In calcareous springy places, the brown bog rush grows. Kemeri Lake is an internationally significant place for waterfowl nesting. It is one of the few Ramsar sites in Latvia. The birds nesting in the lake include various species of ducks and gulls, bitterns, egrets, grebes, swans and coots. There is enough food for everyone, even for the birds staying in the lake only during the molting. In spring and autumn, it is a popular feeding and resting site for migrating birds. Some exotic visitors can also be seen here. The best thing man can do for the birds is not to disturb them, especially in the nesting season. When the season is over, the lake islands are cleared from shrubs and tree sprouts. In the vast reed beds, tunnels are made to facilitate waterfowl's access to the islands. If the islands overgrow, they become not only unsuitable for duck and gull nesting, but even dangerous, mainly because of the American mink. These predators have spread in the wild from fur farms, and today it is regarded almost as an obligation to decrease their number at the lake. There were many mink dens in the ground embankment formed during the construction of artificial islands in 1965. Now the bank has been leveled off and replaced by a pebbled beach that can serve as a good nesting site for the common tern until it overgrows by grass. Ducks are also killed by hunters, although they do it in a more sensible way than the American mink. Hunting takes place in the autumn, when killing of a few birds has a low impact on the number of birds in the following years. However, this kind of activity inside a protected nature area frightens off the visitors who want to observe animals and enjoy nature in peace. Bird-watching sites become less interesting if hunting is allowed there. The birds are frightened and are very likely to fly away at the first sight of humans. The National Park Administration has succeeded in introducing a ban on bird hunting in the whole territory of the park. Kemeri's lake is rich not only in birds but also in fish, a fair share of which migrate from the sea to the lake for spawning. 2 floodgates were till recently used for letting the fish into the lake. With time, the floodgates had fallen into neglect and did not fulfill their function. Within the LIFE project, the concrete constructions and gates were restored and new modern lifting mechanisms were installed. When operating the floodgates in spring, during the nesting season, great care must be taken to maintain a stable water level in the lake. The rising of the water level may flood the nests on the islands. To avoid this, the floodgates are operated successively one after another, so that the water level in the lake does not change too rapidly. Kemeri's lake is not the only migratory bird concentration site in Kemeri National Park. In August and September, the fields surrounding the Great Bog come alive with hundreds of cranes. They gather here to feed and get strength before flying off to their wintering sites. During daytime, cranes feed in the vast fields. As the sun sets, they fly off to spend the night in the bogs or in low water among the reeds, where they feel safe from predators. Later in September, cranes are joined by flocks of geese coming from the north. They usually spend the night in the bog lakes of the big raised bogs or in the vast expanses of the Kemeri's lake. The national park has a duty towards migrating birds to ensure that their stay in these stopover sites is not disturbed. There are many reasons why visitors to the national park should not walk everywhere, but only in specially designated areas. The main reason is that animals are afraid of people. If a human comes near the nest of an eagle or a black stork, especially at the beginning of the hatching season, it may cause the birds to abandon the nest. Big animals are very sensitive to the presence of humans in the forest during the period when they nurture their young. It is also important not to disturb the birds in their mass concentration sites. These considerations must be taken into account in the process of territorial planning. The personnel of the national park work together to improve the conditions of plants and animal habitats. There are negative changes taking place in nature due to various global processes. These changes can be detected by continuous environmental monitoring. It is especially important to acquire up-to-date information on threatened species. The biologists of the national park monitor the number of birds in Kemeri's lake. Specialists of the Institute of Biology assist them during the annual census of nesting waterfowl. Every year, all nests of eagles and black storks located in the national park are inspected to gather data on their nesting success. On the same occasion, the young birds are ringed. In the summer, ornithologists count meadow and marsh birds, paying special attention to the corncrake. In order to monitor changes of plant communities in bogs and meadows, botanical monitoring sites have been arranged in several places of the park. They can be easily located by using global positioning system receivers. Special computer software allows with high precision to project the surveyed territories, objects and routes on maps. The drill holes made for underground research also supply data that can be used for a better understanding of the natural processes. A great number of drill holes were made years ago to investigate the formation of sulfur springs below the peat bogs. Some of these drill holes can still be used for scientific research, and new holes are being made. Nature protection begins with learning about nature. Well-designed hiking trails and information material make a visit to the national park more enjoyable and interesting. In the year 2000, a boardwalk was built in the Kemeri Great Bog. Today, this trail, winding for 3 kilometers through a maze of scenic bog pools, has become very popular among the visitors of the park. Equally popular, especially among school kids, are the activities of the Children Nature School, such as bird and bat watching. Working under the guidance of experienced teachers, the children learn to watch, hear and understand the life of bogs, forests, meadows and lakes. With the finishing of the work financed by the Life Nature program, an important phase in the development of Kemeri National Park has come to an end. Some major improvements in rare plant and animal habitats have been made, mainly due to one-off measures. But a lot of further efforts will be needed to achieve good results in species and habitat conservation. In the following years, further development of the infrastructure for nature tourism will be a high priority for the park administration. The planned activities include reconstructing the Kemeri's boat station, building new boardwalks and watchtowers, and establishing a Kemeri Great Bog Information Center.